Hey guys, how is everybody doing? And it is officially a wrap on my Sean Connery review series of the James Bond franchise. So, that means it is time to rank all seven of his James Bond movies from worst to best. And yes, I say seven because I will be including Never Say Never Again, even though it is considered and, advertised as a unofficial James Bond movie. But I don't care about that. I'm still going to include it in my ranking because, well, I spent my hard-earned money to rent it, and I am not going to make it go to waste. And plus, I already reviewed it as well. So, with that all out of the way, this is my own personal ranking of all seven Sean Connery James Bond movies ranked from worst to best. And before I even get into my ranking, I will fully admit I don't really think any of these movies were very good, if I'm honest. Maybe three of them I enjoyed because they were actually fun and actually felt like a good James Bond movie. But other than that, I didn't really care for any of these movies, if I'm completely honest. So even my number one, I would still consider just an okay movie. But you probably have already seen my review series of all these movies. But enough stalling, here is my own personal ranking. Coming up in number seven, in last place, the worst of all of Sean Connery's James Bond movies, and it should be no surprise, and that is Diamonds Are Forever. This movie genuinely made me wonder what the fuck was going on because this kind of just felt like an SNL skit the entire time I was watching. It is nothing but just poor acting, poor writing, and the fucking villains being weasels, basically. And no one gives a good performance in this movie. I talked about that before, where you think Sean Connery would actually give a halfway decent performance, but he doesn't. It just seems like he didn't care, and it just seemed like he didn't even want to be there. And that's kind of sad because Sean Connery is the reason that these any of these movies have been watchable. Like I honestly feel like if Sean Connery wasn't James Bond in these movies, I probably wouldn't have liked the have gotten through some of these or hell even enjoyed some of these movies. Sean Connery is what made these movies enjoyable, and to see him just basically be lifeless, not even be there, and acting like he doesn't even care about this character or this project anymore, which I believe at this time that he kind of did quit giving a fuck, which can clearly tell in this movie. And just in general, this movie is just so bad. Like it felt so goofy the entire time I was watching it. There's literally a part where the main villain of this movie dresses up like a woman, and I couldn't tell you why. But in the end, this is not a very good movie. I did not enjoy it whatsoever. It has that entertainingly bad type of feel to it to where you kind of get some entertainment from all the badness, but even that can't even save the movie. But hell, I guess I don't know what gem of a movie looks like. Coming up at number six, and this one almost was my least favorite, and it almost was worst on this ranking, but it just got up a little bit. But coming in at number six is going to be Thunderball. Now, the reason I kind of almost put this one in last place is because of its remake, Never Say Never Again, which is just a revamped version of what this movie was meant to be. That's almost why I put it in last place, just because Never Say Never kind of ruined this movie even more for me. But nevertheless, the reason I did not care for this movie so much is because how fucking boring it was. The entire movie is kind of spent underwater almost, which that has the entertaining part of it. This movie underwater and kind of the action sequences underwater and kind of the mission being underwater. It was a cool change in tone from what the other movies were and what the other movies were going for. It has that entertainment value for that because it was different for being spent underwater. But my God, after a while, it just got nauseating because this movie was just constant running back and forth. Either we would be out of the water and we would be doing some other thing about the mission, like stopping the villain maybe, or doing what the fuck, who knows type bullshit. And then there's just other times where we're done with that, and all of a sudden, oh, we're back underwater doing something. It's like, oh, okay, we're gonna continue this, and then oh, all of a sudden we're on the land again doing something, and oh, and then we're going back into the water and we're doing more of the mission. And it was just that for 2 straight hours pretty much. Like obviously there was other stuff going on before all that, but when I was watching it, that's literally all it felt like. It was just constant running back and forth where it got nauseating and the movie just became boring because the writing was so poor to where they didn't really know what they wanted to do. They didn't know if they wanted to be spent on the land doing normal James Bond stuff like the other, I believe, three before this. And then the other part of the write's like, oh, let's make this one actually different and unique and spend it underwater. But even then, it doesn't change that this movie has nothing really going on. Coming in at number five, the one that started it all, the very first James Bond movie and the very first Sean Connery movie that where he made his big debut as the big character, with number five being Doctor No. And it kind of pains me to put the very first movie this low because you usually think that the very first movie would be one of the better ones, be one of the more fun ones, especially with it being the very first James Bond movie and being Sean Connery's debut as this character. You think it would have, you know, that entertainment value from that. But however, after watching all of these movies back to back to back and, seeing the differences from them, this one is just very tame when it comes to the other ones. It doesn't have the cool action. It doesn't have James Bond using the fun gadgets. It doesn't have the love interest. The villain himself, Dr. No, is just plain boring and forgettable and a very generic villain to where his whole scheme and his whole character is just I want to take over the world. Like that is literally all this movie is, and that's all that character is. And it sucks to say that because I was really hoping I would enjoy this movie because I watched this one before back when No Time to Die was coming out because I wanted to watch the very first James Bond movie and I didn't remember a thing from it. So that might have been my first time that maybe I didn't even like it or maybe I didn't pay good attention because it was boring. And this movie I think out of all of them, this is one of those movies, the movies that just doesn't age well. Now, a lot of these movies don't age well, but Doctor No in specific just doesn't seem to age well at all. Besides from Sean Connery, no one really gives a noteworthy performance. The action with the green screen, motion picture thing behind him and the action sequences that ages poorly. And especially, like I said earlier, when it compared to these other movies, it just does not seem like James Bond. It just seems tame and a boring spy movie. But just barely above that one at number four. And this one might actually get me in trouble because apparently this one's a fan favorite. But coming in at number four is going to be From Russia with Love. And I don't really see what people liked about this movie. Now, I guess it might be a generational gap issue, I guess. Because when I was watching it, I didn't see what people liked because one of my main problems with the movie as well was that it just felt like Doctor No all over again. Now, instead of being on an island and having like a low scale spy movie, it was set in Russia, and we were setting up number one as the villain, like Donald Pleasance's character in what was it from You Only Live Twice or whatever. Like this was the first movie that set that up or whatever. Like this was the first setup movie of the other ones to come and I guess that might be the reason people liked it, but I was just watching it and I didn't really get into it. I There was moments that I liked. I really liked the shots of Russia. Like there was moments where they had really cool shots of Russia showing off the landscape and the cinematography of that was really cool. Just to see Russia in general was really cool. I really enjoyed that because its title it takes place in Russia, and it was it didn't really overly utilize it well, but it has pretty cool shots. But other than that, I honestly couldn't really tell you much of a difference from this one and Doctor No, other than maybe he has more gadgets and maybe that it's set in Russia and this and that. I probably have to look at my notes as to what I really thought about it, but other than that, I couldn't really tell much of a difference from Doctor No. And now we're entering the top three. And if I'm honest, these top three I honestly would consider pretty okay. Now, these are never going to be movies I ever put on and just rewatch out of the blue or whatever. None of these movies are ever going to be that way, if I'm completely honest. But these are movies that I would actually say were pretty good and that I enjoyed. So coming in at number three is going to Say Never Again, the unofficial James Bond movie and the remake of Thunderball. Now, I talked about it in my review about the story, about what this movie was and why it was made, and the whole thing with Thunderball and the screenwriter suing to get his script back pretty much. And I didn't know about any of that until I put on the movie and I realized that they didn't have the gun barrel sequence like the other ones did, and this one just feels different from the other ones. And prior to that, going along with that, excuse me, um, it kind of adds to it. This one is a different feel of James Bond, and it kind of works as a positive and a negative. Though there's moments where it's actually kind of unique and cool, and I like it, but obviously since it's different, you kind of lose that James Bond like taste. But I will say this was also Sean Connery's return to the character after a decade actually, because this one came out like what, 12 years after Diamonds Are Forever. So at this point, it's been 12 years since Sean Connery played the character, and he did pretty damn good in this movie. And he seemed pretty determined, where he seemed more physical. He seemed to be like more embodying the character, like the sexiness and the seriousness of the character. Like Sean Connery is one of the main reasons why I really enjoyed this movie. Now, obviously, I said it earlier that he's the reason that any of these movies were somewhat watchable, but in this one, I feel like he gave one of his better performances because he took himself more seriously and he seemed more determined to show the world, hey, this is my character. Roger Moore can be playing this character, but I'm going to show the world that I'm the OG and that the old man still got it type mentality. And that's what I got out of it, and I really enjoyed that. And now, obviously, this movie is not perfect. I do prefer it over Thunderball. Obviously, it's this much higher, and it definitely has its perks. There are moments where this movie is like where I'm like, okay, this should have been what Thunderball should have been. It was definitely more entertaining, but since it is technically a remake, there are moments where it literally has the same scenes. The villains are the exact same. There's nothing different about them. They try to add new villains, but they don't really do anything for the movie, and they're just generic and they're just there. And it's kind of weird pointing this out, but this movie focuses a lot on sex. It seemed like there was like a lot of like sex scenes in this movie, and near assault sometimes too. I'm not complaining. But overall, I actually really enjoyed this movie. It was a very solid reimagining of what Thunderball was supposed to be, and I liked the movie enough from just the screenwriter making the movie he wanted to make. Not a lot of filmmakers are able to do that today, to where they get a project ripped away from them and they're not able to make the movie they are. Zack Snyder is a perfect example of that. He's got a lot of projects ripped away from him that he didn't get to make the way he wanted, but then he got his way with certain production companies like Warner Brothers and Netflix with Rebel Moon and the Justice League. David Ayer is a very good example of that too. He got his Suicide Squad movie basically ripped away from him. He didn't get to make the movie he wanted to make. And there's rumors that maybe the Ayer cut will come out, but that'll probably never come to fruition. And honestly, I don't think we need it. Coming in at number two, and oddly enough, it has the word two in it pretty much. You Only Live Twice. Now, I was honestly really happy that I really enjoyed this because I believe this one came after Thunderball. I think this one was the one after Thunderball. I can't remember. But either ways, it came after one of the ones I really didn't enjoy, so I didn't really have much anticipation for this movie. But I actually really enjoyed You Only Live Twice. This was one of those movies where I was like, hey, I actually had a fun time with it. The action was definitely a lot more fun and a lot more big scale, and it actually had a lot of fun action sequences, whether it was like, car chases, fight sequences, shootouts, whatever. And the setting in Japan really kind of added like this different type of flavor to it, especially of the fight sequences. I really enjoyed that. But I love Donald Pleasance, and he is one of the reasons I do enjoy the movie a little bit, just from him being in it, because I'm a huge Halloween fan, and whenever I see Donald Pleasance, I'm always going to think of Sam Loomis, and seeing him in this movie play, the villain that inspired Doctor Evil is pretty funny to me.
An Eggo? No, no, we don't gnaw on our kitty. No, leave Minnie Mr. Bigglesworth alone.
But his performance in this movie and his line delivery is very odd and weird, and I don't really like it because he'll literally be there like, "You only live twice, Mr. Bond." It's really weird. He talks really weird, and it's just like, oh, well, this is not a very good performance. You think he would get better out of Donald Pleasance, especially how good of a performance he gives to Sam Loomis in the Halloween franchise, but what do I know? And there's also just like a weird point in time in the movie where there's literally just nothing going on. There's literally moments where the characters are just kind of learning a kung fu camp, which No, it's not even a kung fu camp. It's a fucking ninja camp or something like that. It's literally called Ninja Camp. Who the fuck has Ninja Camp? I would go to Ninja Camp. But coming in at my number one, my favorite Sean Connery James Bond movie, and even at my number one, I still think it's just an okay movie, and that is Goldfinger. Goldfinger, for some weird reason, I just found myself really enjoying, and I just had a really fun time with it. The villain is what kind of made the movie for me. Now, I don't like his actor. I feel like the actor that they chose doesn't really, kind of resemble of what the character should have been. But this movie was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Now, and I had my issues with Oddjob because I can't help but picture the dude from Austin Powers when he throws the fucking shoe at him. That's all I could see in this character, so he was kind of ruined for me. And this was also still the point in time where the action was pretty mediocre. There's literally a scene where James and Oddjob are fighting, and there's literally no background music. It's just the sound of the ticking clock and the sounds of their grunts. That's all the fight is, and it's fucking awkward and weird. But other than that, I just had a fun time with this movie. I honestly don't mind rewatch. I wouldn't mind rewatching this, but again, these are none of these movies are going to be movies I ever rewatch. But if I had to choose to rewatch one of Sean Connery's James Bond movies, it would probably be this one. That or You Only Live Twice. So coming in at my number one is Goldfinger. Thank you all so much for joining me on this journey of the James Bond franchise starring Sean Connery, and I honestly didn't expect this series to do as good as it did, and I'm very thankful for that. So thank you all so much for tuning in and watching these movies. And hell, maybe down the line I'll probably do Roger Moore's movies, but only time will tell. I have other plans as of right now, and especially for the month of July, so get prepared for that. But if you are interested in me doing Roger Moore, let me know. And if you really want to see it, I'll probably end up doing it. But until that time comes, we have officially come to an end for the James Bond franchise. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you liked it, leave if you liked it, like this video, and if you loved it, subscribe to the notifications so you will get notified for all my latest videos. Let me know your own personal ranking of all Sean Connery's James Bond movies down in the comments below, and we will talk about it. And of course, until my next video, I'll see you all next time.